Welcome to The Numbers Game. I'm Jason, and as always, I'm joined with Nick and Marty, and today we're getting excited to talk numbers and getting real. But before that, just check in. Marty, Nick, how are you both?
Going well, thanks, Jace. This episode I'm really pumped about because businesses are under challenge with expenses going up, probably sideways momentum in sales. So we're going to talk about why it's so important to get around your numbers and come off the realism of what the numbers are and how to build strategy off it. So looking forward to sharing ideas with you two fine gentlemen. Nick, how are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I think I'm really expecting good things out of this episode. We're one episode into the new season, and this is going to be good because I think a lot of businesses have had exponential growth throughout COVID. And I think you could talk to this more, Jace, but there's businesses are either doing really well or they're not doing so well. And the ones that are doing really well or have done really well in the last 2 years need to now start to think about what the next 2 years is going to look like. And is it going to have an impact on how they perform? So, looking forward to unpacking this one. How are you, mate? Still up in sunny Queensland, I see. You've still got the palm tree behind you.
I actually got to give it some water. It's getting a little bit dry in here since I've set up my little podcast studio in the back room up here at my cousin's place in Port Douglas. But still here, enjoying the weather and need to get a few more runs in. Greg and I are training for the Gold Coast Marathon, which is only a couple of weeks away. And I must say he's definitely more prepared than me after he must be at 970 days of running at the moment. And he's looking fit, lean and ready to smash it. I think he's secretly going for a 3-hour marathon. Keeps telling me he only wants 3.5, but his training times tell me something different. So you're not going well, mate. Thank you, Nick. And likewise, I echo you boys in saying I'm super excited to talk about this episode. Before I dive in and kick off and pass back to Marty, we'll just say that this episode is proudly brought to you by the wonderful team at Innovate. Anything financial planning, mortgage broking, asset finance, or just a conversation with good people that want to push you in the right direction and get you your goals like buying a home or superannuation insurance is sorted. It's inovayt.com.au. Heaps of really valuable stuff on that website. So if you've been listening for the last 105 episodes and haven't gone over there, now is your time. So kicking off, I just wanted to say, going on from what you said before, Nick, about what I would see with the businesses that we look after, it's almost like a two-speed economy. We've had businesses that have done super well. They got all the benefits and they were flying. And then we had some that kind of struggled through that COVID kind of time. We're coming out the other side of it now, and we're seeing a bit of a mixed result of the ones that were doing really well. All of a sudden, in some challenging times, if you've done really well and you haven't really needed to focus on your numbers and you're flying by going okay, we've seen some hit some pretty difficult times where all of a sudden the bank account's going down, sales aren't rolling in the way they used to. And it's only kind of in the more recent quarters where their numbers have taken a bit of a turn. And if you're not paying attention to your numbers, this is where very fast you can learn how hard business is. On the other side of that, we've got businesses that weren't necessarily flying and they've just hit the ground all of a sudden and they're running and they're up and firing. There's just things that are working for them. So it'd be interesting to dive into this and see what are the things you need to focus on, whether you're flying or not. I think this applies to all businesses, but we're going to focus this more on as times get a little bit more difficult, where are your focus points? So I might hand to you, Marty, because I know you're pretty across all this stuff with your experience.
Yeah, like you said, you've got 11 interest rate rises in 13 months. You've got inflation having expenses going up. And like I look at general things like we see, construction businesses falling over with lower margins and under real pressure. And that's for various different reasons. But the world this week just got a little bit fatter. Let me start here on a bit more jovial note, even though it's not jovial for them. Weight loss centre Jenny Craig went into voluntary liquidation last week after its US business went into bankruptcy. So basically the ads will be changing. I've lost $6 million in the last 6 weeks. Thanks, Jenny. And I say it tongue in cheek, but this is like this business was established in the US, but in Australia from Jenny and Sydney Craig back in 1983. And I've watched it evolve over that period, not because I'm overweight, but just in general. Now they have celebrities on the Jenny Craig ads, like they go, I lost 80 kilos in a week, and everyone gets up and about and it's exciting. Back when it started, they had everyday people on the ads. Like they would in the 80s, they would have, Cynthia out from Moonee Ponds, and she'd lost not only 20 kilos in 4 weeks, but she lost her whole personality as well. It was like they lost the will to live was gone. So it's like I've seen that business evolve from its marketing campaigns into what it is now. So it's actually really sad to see a business like that. And that's I bring that up tongue in cheek a little bit, but this is the serious side of it, that businesses are starting to really feel the effects of those higher expenses. And initially, what you find in these environments, everyone understands that there's inflations and prices are going up. And during those COVID periods, people had surplus cash. So you'll generally find that the momentum continues, people keep spending as they usually spend, and then ultimately it gets to a point where that starts to stop. And businesses who are charging a higher fee in that inflationary period, at some point the consumers don't buy as aggressively or they don't buy as often, and you start to see this handbrake effect happening. And I think that's probably happened over the last 6 months, and people are really starting to feel the pinch. So yeah, I might throw open to comment on that, but that's the initial synopsis that I'm starting to see in the general business market. And like you said, businesses that are doing very, very well are doing well. I'm seeing that in manufacturing, metal fabrication, anything that needs to be built for infrastructure seems to be going okay in certain industries. So yeah, but throw it open on that comment, gents.
Well, Marty, it's sad, I don't watch free-to-air TV anymore, so I thought Jenny Craig went broke 10 years ago. But I don't know, just apart from, we'll talk about the business costs and stuff, but I think the world's changing too. Like there's just so many ways to access weight loss, and there's, everyone's an influencer, and, how everyone's across healthy eating now. So I think people are this is not to go on a different tangent, but I think people are just more educated in general, to the point where they probably don't need Jenny Craig so much as they might have in the past. People know that rice bubbles aren't that healthy anymore, and cornflakes aren't that healthy.
So this is also adapting to the times, right? The technology that we have now, or the access to the world. So Jenny Craig and what you get from Jenny Craig, between Weight Watchers, YouFoods, Muscle Chef, online training coaches, websites, meal plans. Like there is so much more than what Jenny Craig brought out in the 80s and 90s that's available in the palm of your hand now. So this really does come down to competitor analysis and understanding your business, but also the businesses around you. So if you're not kind of looking at what your competitors are doing, this is what can happen to you. So I think it's a bloody great point to start the show on, Marty, and well done.
Well, let's cut through the fat here, like legitimately, in regards to it's time to get real with numbers, isn't it? Like we're talking about, we've felt pressures ourselves. We know other business owners are feeling pressures. Like we're still doing well comparing to others in our industry. But it's like it is time to really take stock of your numbers. You can believe in your cash flow projections and your business goals, absolutely, but you got to get real and come back to the reality of circumstances, because otherwise there is that potential, if we're not getting momentum in sales and revenues as you were in the last couple of years, you don't want to get to the point where you need to cut, expenses to the degree where you lose employees. But if you have to, you have to. I think the good thing about great markets and markets with momentum is it can cover up a lot of wounds. But the flip side of that is when things are challenged, you can certainly re-engineer your business to cut deep on costs and making sure that you don't lose the integrity of the business and come out the other side on the next wave upwards really stronger as a business. So it's not an unhealthy thing in the cycle to go through. You just need to be right on the ball with your numbers, what's coming in week to week, month to month, 3 months to 6 months, and working off those realities as opposed to just looking at projections and goals, because again, that's great in a momentous market, but in a more challenging market, you've got to get more focused. Would you agree, Nick?
Yeah, and I think fueling growth, which is what a lot of businesses, number one, have had the luxury of being able to do the last couple of years, particularly in the services-based industries. And number two, it's exciting fueling growth, but the reality is it's costly. And when you load up on expenses to fuel growth, when that growth doesn't happen, it hurts. And you look at a lot of small business owners where traditionally the small business owner generates a lot of the revenue. They can be quite nimble and they can be highly profitable. The minute you start putting costs into that revenue generating machine, then 1 or 2 bad months has a significant impact and can affect the viability of the business long term. So I think when you're talking about growth is great, but you've got to get that growth balanced with profitability at the same time. And this is stuff that we talk about all the time at Innovate. And reimagine your business to go, okay, well, what is the what if scenario? So yes, we want to grow, and yes, we want to be at a certain amount of settlements or a certain amount of revenue. But what if we don't get there? Does the model that we're working off still work if we don't get there? So for our business, we settle 80 mil, that's great. We're growing, but if we settle 70 mil or 60 mil, is the business still profitable and are we happy? And to Marty's point before, that if you've got an efficient business that can work and be profitable on those conservative numbers, well, then when you do have that upside, it's just more money in the kitty and makes your business stronger again. So I guess where I was going with that, to summarize it, is don't go all in on growth. Make sure that you understand what do the conservative numbers look like, and does our cost base still work on those conservative numbers? And then from there, you can realign. If you have 3 or 4 months of really good volume and high growth and you realize you've got to invest more, then that's probably going to be an easy decision because you've had that really profitable quarter or that really profitable 6 months. So I think a lot of businesses will need to take a step back and look at the next couple of years and look at those what-if scenarios, Jason. That's probably the stuff that you'd be doing with businesses now that have had exorbitant growth over the last couple of years, because there's many of them.
100%, mate. And look, one of the absolute basic fundamentals that I will always harp on about is as a business owner, it's not okay to not know your numbers and just think that you can outsource that to your accountant or outsource that to someone else. If you are the person at the top of the pyramid and responsible for the business and employees and customers, it is your job to actually know your numbers. I don't mean that you need to do it alone. You can hire an accountant or whatever else, but you must know. And that always starts for me. I would just go, if you don't know how to read a profit and loss and a balance sheet, if you went into your Xero or your accounting system right now and clicked profit and loss or balance sheet and you don't know certain things that are on there, book an appointment with your accountant or some kind of advisor who can help educate you and train you, or do some online learning. I mean, there's heaps of courses and stuff out there, but the flow on it, and why I start with that, Nick, is if you don't understand your profit and loss and balance sheet, just at the most basic level, when it then comes to analyzing how much revenue you can add and what your expenses are doing, it's very hard for someone to understand the inputs and outputs of revenue and expenses and what that does to their bottom line without the basic understanding of your profit and loss and balance sheet. The flow on from that, and why I always start there, is if we then do budgeting and forecasting sessions with clients, which are some of the most enjoyable sessions to sit in a room or a virtual room with a business owner and model their business, talk about what do you need to do to get here? Or it's also asking them their goals. Where do they want to get to? Because not everyone needs to do millions of turnover and have millions of profits. It's also what fits in their lifestyle and their goals. But it's getting that out of them and going, cool, I now know your goals and where you want to get to. Let's model that out. Let's do budgets and forecasts to understand your business. And there's some really clear things that fall out of that a lot of business owners, have some uncertainty about and almost feel sick sometimes because they don't get it or don't understand it. That might be something as simple as how much GST and withholding taxes and income tax should I be saving each week, each fortnight, each month? Because it seems like every quarter you send me a bill for 100 grand or 50 grand for my BAS and the money's not there. So it's these things that drive the sustainability and long-term success of a business, is knowing the basics and the fundamentals, and then being able to, I guess, dial up the sophistication by having budgets and forecasts. There's nothing more exciting as a business owner to running, let's say last month was April. we knew our targets for April. We knew what our numbers should look like. And when we ran an actual versus budget, we beat our targets and we got to celebrate with our team because we knew what our numbers should be. If you don't know your numbers and you don't know what you should be achieving as a business, how do you ever get to stop and reflect and celebrate that? So I've gone on a bit there, but yeah, there's kind of starting point of what I'm really excited about working with clients on is budgets and forecasts, but you got to have the basic knowledge to get started.
I was actually talking to a business a couple of weeks ago, and they have 4 accounts. They have the business account where all the trading revenues go. They have a tax and GST and super account, which is 30%. They just do it generic, 30%, 60% on expenses. So it's another account, general expenses, and then 10% profitability. Now, they've overcooked on the 30 and the 60%, but they just do it as a discipline behavior so they don't get into trouble, and then they'll forecast and look at what the revenues are, but they just do that as a practice because they're not financial people. Like they are from a numbers point of view on the front end, on the people, product, strategy side, but not so much understanding the dynamics of the tax and things like that. But I thought that was interesting because again, people are trying their best when they don't know, and that's why it's important, as we always say, to get advice to try and work out how to do that more effectively. So I thought that was interesting. It's a good point, Jace.
One of the other things that we're going to talk about, Jace, which I'd be keen to get your thoughts on as to whether or not you're having these conversations with businesses, but one of the key things that's driving inflation, particularly in the US, and it'll be the same here, is the cost of services. So we've obviously got the price of goods that are starting to come back down, but the cost of services is staying high. And I look at one of our businesses, which is the financial planning business, and I think a lot of financial planners are just increasing their costs at the moment. Higher wage costs, not so much higher rent. I think higher wage costs is probably the only one that they
Big
can
driver,
really.
yep.
Is a big driver. Maybe some IT costs and support costs in their business, but we're just seeing the cost of financial planning go up and up and up. And it's getting to a point where it's unaffordable for the people that really need it. So it makes me think about other industries that have had all this exponential growth and haven't needed to worry about revenue in the past, particularly in the past 2 years, But moving forward, where inflation is hitting and people start making better decisions and start getting rid of things that they possibly don't need, I think some industries might be at risk of a reduction in revenue simply because they're too expensive. So it got me thinking about our own business and some of the stuff that we're doing, but we've kind of thought, well, how can we impact that? Yes, staff costs have gone up. Yes, some of our own services that we pay for have gone up. But how do we still deliver an affordable product or an affordable service to our clients so that we do maintain growth and we do have new clients coming on the books and we don't have clients leaving because it's getting so expensive? And for us, it's completely reimagining how we do things and what we do. And we're not just doing this now. This is constant for us. The first movement was into offshore. Now, that was great, and that saved us a lot of money, and that helped us implement a lot of things that we probably wouldn't have implemented. But offshore is going up. What used to be $25,000 a year for an employee is now 30, 33.
Increased demand, supply staying basically where it is. So, price is going up.
Correct. So all of a sudden now we look at our offshore costs and go, that's not the win that it used to be, and that continues to go up. So for us, we've got to rethink how we do things. So it's technology, it's AI, and not to go down the AI conversation, but the reality is there's going to be areas in our business where we can use it, and there's going to be areas in our business where it's going to create efficiency. So we need to constantly almost break the model without breaking it and rethink of how do we go forward? How do we go forward sustainably without increasing costs, which means we don't need to increase costs to our clients, which means we maintain growth and we still have revenue coming in. So
reading a brilliant book at the moment that's actually got me thinking about this is your competitor right now is not the financial planning or mortgage broking firm down the road. When it comes to customer service and client expectation, they can compare you to anything. How easy it is to book an Uber, how easy it is to get food delivered to your door. But if signing up on your website and giving you money is hard and annoying and there's too many forms and too many steps or it takes too long, they'll go elsewhere. And that's now the world we're in, is that this ability to compare with technology and speed of service and, great customer service. So in saying that, Nick, I completely agree. It, might not be, just offshore for some businesses, looking at their costs there, but you need to look at your costs and look at some potential cost controls and where you can save some money. And if it is wages and employees, that's one thing. But I definitely think, and I know you said, we're not going to necessarily dive into AI, but the speed that the market around technology and what's available is changing right now is mind blowing. And if you're not staying on top of it and and I said it earlier on, keeping an eye on your competitors and what they're doing, but also innovating yourself, like innovating and being ahead of the curve. It's okay to trial some things out. And if you're the first to go to market with something new and unique, you'll get that first mover advantage. And looking at one example at the moment, which is really just kind of constantly in my brain at the moment, Carbon, which is a software management company for accounting firms. A practice management system for accounting firms. They launched in the last week their AI version of their practice management. Mate, imagine you can sit there and say to your computer, set up a job for Nick Riley. I'm doing his 2023 tax return. And that's all you've had to say. You haven't clicked anything. You haven't had to go and open the job. And all of a sudden, what appears on your screen is Nick Riley's 2023 tax return pre-filled, ready to go. And it's all voice control. The speed that you'll be able to talk to the AI ran practice management system to generate an invoice for Marty. I spent 2 hours with him at $300 an hour doing some consulting, and it arrives in Marty's inbox. This is the new world that we're going to be working in, where AI technology and all this stuff is going to mean that Marty and I finished our meeting, and within 5 minutes, he's got a summary of the meeting that was dictated over our Zoom meeting. And he's got his invoice where he goes, bloody hell, Jace is efficient. He's good. That's great service. So that's the kind of things. And if you can do that cheaper because you're using tools and technology that's available to you, and then all of a sudden you don't have to put your prices up and you can keep serving your clients that are doing it tough at the moment. Not that that's the be all and end all. I mean, everyone's got to maintain prices, cover their expenses, but this is all part of that. What the message we have for business owners right now is, if you don't understand your costs and your revenue drivers and your margins, this is where you're going to hit trouble right now.
Yeah, and your value delivery is paramount at this time, because if there's less cake and you need a bigger slice of it in order to do well in this type of market, you have to deliver something of high quality, and utilizing those efficiencies in tech can give you that edge. Now, I'm thinking about the business owners out there that are not embracing it at the moment and are worried because time's not on their side to learn it all and apply it, which is another challenge for business owners that have been around for a while. You need to narrow your focus. You need to work out what you do exceptionally well and go all in on it to drive great experiences, great revenues. And there's an old Confucius saying, the man that chases two rabbits catches neither. And I totally believe that. Sometimes you can get distracted where you really need to focus and narrow in, do what you do exceptionally well. Great businesses that I've seen over time, and a business might not be at this stage yet, have 3 months of expenses in their account in advance, and that buys them 12 months. So if there's any change in economics over the course of the business, the ones that I've seen really do well, and this is going back even in business banking days 20 years ago, and that's why people say you're only ever 3 months of going out of business because things had changed. But that 3 months of having cash in the bank does help you for 12 months, given little variances in that cycle. So a couple of things like that. The other thing was, you've already talked about it, review your financial model. If you need to review, make adjustments, bring in tech, do it. You'll be better on the back end of it. And the other thing, if you need to cut deep, but don't cut the revenue drivers or the integrity of experience to the clients. So again, you got to keep the business healthy, because you think about, if there are going to be job losses, you've got to make sure that those job losses don't impact the integrity of what the business delivers as well. So that's really, really important as well. So, challenging time for business owners, but it's a great way to take stock and really hit your business hard, narrow your focus, create great experiences. And I give you an example of this. Tom Panos, who's a real estate educator and been a real estate agent for many years, he was saying on the weekend in the real estate industry that auctions in Melbourne, we were 500 properties down year to date that we were last year, and Sydney was about 370. And it's a volume game. So you're going to find that agents fall out of the industry that are not stepping up and providing a unique service to their clients and really, outvaluing other agents because you just haven't got the volumes that are there. We're fortunate in the finance industry. We're looking at refinances as well as purchases, but we need to pivot too because, we've got to help where the help is needed at various times. And we have those discussions regularly about that. But in that game, if you haven't got the volume of stock, you're obviously not selling at the extent you were. So you have to work out how can you be better and get a bigger slice of that cake and do it more effectively with lower expense. Not always that easy, but you have to do it at these times. So, because otherwise you just get cooked.
100%. No, Marty, that's absolutely bang on. And there was actually one other thing I just wanted to add in there, and it's kind of relevant to what you guys do as well and stuff that I'm seeing. It's around debt management. One of the things to look at, let's just say you've listened to this episode, you've gone and looked at your financial statements, you've done some budgeting and forecasting, you've looked at your cash flow management, you're finding a way to put 3 months worth of expenses in the bank account, looked at pricing strategies, looked at cost control. The other one that we haven't kind of mentioned is debt management. If you then look at your balance sheet, you can see a growing ATO debt, or there's some high interest loans that you've taken out in the past. You've got some finance on vehicles and things that are coming to balloon payments. This is all things that you should also be future planning as well, not just future planning your revenue, your expenses, and your profit. That's your P&L style financial modeling, but also financial model, basically like a 5-year plan on your balance sheet too. If you do have equipment assets and finance and working capital loans and ATO debt. So I know that, not everyone wants to go out and get a loan from the bank to pay their ATO debt. But often that's one of the biggest stresses on a business owner's head is this debt hanging over their shoulders where they're getting letters from the ATO with big red warning letters on it. So meeting with someone and talking about debt management, and whether that's, yourself, Marty, and the team at Innovate and your accountant involved as well. But these are the things you need to be managing in advance. Don't wait until it's too late, because it's often when it's too late that you can't get the finance or the assistance to get yourself out of the hole that you might have dug yourself in.
You have to act now. You absolutely have to act now. And I don't say this to scare people, but the thing is, we're still not out of this inflationary cycle. And again, tax debt has to be paid, but there's no real purpose to the business in that debt. So sometimes you've got to park your ego at the door, and you might have to sell assets in order to put cash in the bank to make sure you're in a solid position. Don't be afraid to do that. I've seen people in the retail space with homes do that with investments because they put themselves in a strong position and then take advantage of the next opportunity. The main thing is to get the foundation settled and supported, and to work out strategies, and whether that's setting up a new debt for that tax debt, and then finding a way to get out of that, because it's not really a relevant debt you want to be holding. It's not adding value to the business. Yep. So if you can get rid of that in some capacity, then again, set yourself up so to not get yourself in that position again on that tax debt, and have those different buckets.
Whether it's a payment plan or something
Correct.
like a loan, but it's getting it manageable and then working it back into your cash flow forecast so that
Correct.
You can see how those repayments fit into your ability for your business to push forward. The other side of that as well, and look, most business owners will go, no, I can't go there, but it's a very much available thing, is small business restructures, voluntary administration, and those kind of things where there is a restructure of your debts. We had a business that was able to wipe $700,000 off what they owed the ATO. They were working in the construction industry. They had some bigger clients upstream that went under. Think of like your pro builds and things like that. And these guys were painting and other bits and pieces, all trades and construction basically jobs. And unfortunately, because their clients further up the stream went under, the money didn't come in for them to be able to give to the ATO. Now, that's just normal dealings of business. This shit happens, like legitimately shit happens. So going and, putting your hand up and saying, hey, if I don't get some help to get out of this, I'm going to lose my own business and my employees and my subcontractors.
And you are not alone. Like you listen to Jace,
Well said.
There are professionals out there to help and you are not alone. In these types of climates, business owners, they feel like the heroes when things are going well, which we all want to feel, right? But this is a part of business. This is the landscape. This is cyclical. This happens. So get the right advice, become stronger, do what you can. There's strategy you can put around it instead of going into panic, and know that you are okay and it will be okay, and you'll do what needs, the sun will come up tomorrow and you'll do what needs to be required to move through this. And if not, there are ways to deal with that as well. It's not the end of the game. So I think that's really important to say for people that are going through this out there. And believe you me, the people don't realize this, but even in an inflation cycle, what tends to happen, it's like a bull market. Right. So this is not over yet, because what will happen is obviously consumers stop spending at a certain point, and that's what they want in order to get inflation back under order. But then businesses aren't doing the revenues they're usually doing. Wages stagnate, or there are job losses, which is all a part of this inflation game. But what happens then? What do you think happens then? Rates come down. What do you think happens then? Inflation goes up again. So you're still trying to get that balance of trying to get things in order into that 3% threshold of growth. And that's the thing, that there's still a challenge. So this might still play out over an 18-month cycle. So this is why you need to act now on these things, so you don't get cooked down the track in 6 months by not paying attention to the numbers and acting accordingly, because there are still some fallout with this that people don't even recognise are there. They go, yeah, rates will come down in 2024 and the world will be fine. But there'll still be an inflation upkick off that. So you just need to monitor that and to make sure that your business is healthy regardless, and be able to be nimble enough to work with what the environment presents. So, and you are not alone. Call on myself from Debt, Jace, in regard, even the financial planning with Nick. It's like, know that you're okay and you've got friends in your back pocket, instead of thinking you're all on your own on this.
Yeah, well said, Marty. Guys, stay informed on market conditions, monitor industry trends, and as Marty said, adapt accordingly. This has been another episode of The Numbers Game. Thank you for joining. If you have enjoyed another episode, please like, share, comment, tell your friends about us, give us a follow, 5-star ratings, and until next time,
just keep punching. Just keep punching. You'll find your way through. That's the exciting part about business. Game over.